Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dion, and I am an assistant dean of admission here at Reed College. Welcome to our faculty hours. Today, you'll get to hear an exciting conversation about our comparative race and ethnic studies program, ethnicity studies program. And I'm joined by a few wonderful guests, a few students, as well as one of our professors from our history and humanities studies department. So I'll allow them the opportunity to introduce themselves. So feel free to join in, and then I'll kind of go over the lay of the land and how we'll do things today.
Oh, should I go first? Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
hi, my name is Radhika Natarajan, and I'm a historian. I study the history of the British Empire, particularly migration and citizenship in the era of decolonization. I'm also the chair of our Comparative Race and Ethnicity Studies program.
I can introduce myself next. I'm Kenna. I'm a senior CRES history major. I'm from Los Angeles, California, and yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you guys and answer some of your questions, hopefully.
And I am Amelia. I'm also a senior in CRES. I do comparative race and ethnicity studies and anthropology. Also from Los Angeles. We got a little bit of a theme going on here. And yeah, both me and Ken are pretty passionate about the program. We're the only majors in our year, so always great to get to proselytize a little bit. So.
Oh, well, that is awesome. It is a pleasure and honor to meet you all. And I can't wait to hear more about the program and more about your experience within the program. For the students and family members tuning in today, what we'll do, we'll kind of talk for about roughly 40, 45 minutes, and then we'll give you the opportunity to ask questions. I know your video is off. I know you're muted, and that is all for a reason. Not that we don't want to see your wonderful faces, but we just want to make sure we allow the faculty members and students time to express themselves. And so, kind of towards the end, we'll open it up for Q&A. If you have any questions, feel free to share them in the chat. And then once we get to Q&A period, we'll be able to answer those questions. Or if professor or students feel like answering questions in the middle, they can do that as well. But we do have a Q&A section, so don't be afraid to ask questions in the chat. All right, and I'll let Professor Radhika take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for your interest in CRES. At CRES, the comparative study of race and ethnicity is a program, not a department. And what that means is that we are kind of spread out over the college in many departments, I shouldn't say all. And we have, for students who are interested in majoring in CRES, we have seven department partners that host the CRES major. And so those partners are anthropology, sociology, history, religion, music, dance, and English. And so students who want to be CRES majors, they take they take different CRES classes across the different disciplines at Reed, and they take a junior seminar in comparative race and ethnicity studies that's also kind of cross-listed in one of those departments, but is also trying to really give them the tools, the methods to be able to study race and ethnicity, especially in their senior thesis. To support our students, we have a variety of programming that we put on. For instance, today we're hosting a book launch, a book celebration party for Shawnee Evans's new book, We Belong Here, which is not a history, it's a sociology book that studies Black Portlanders' experiences of gentrification and white placemaking. So that's one of our events that we have this semester, and we try to do a few events of different kinds every year. Last year, we had a listening party for when Beyonce's his new album came out, and we were joined by one of my colleagues in music, who is a historian of Black American music, to talk about Black country music and kind of what Beyonce was doing with all the genres she brought together. So the major is kind of spread out across all these departments. It's very multidisciplinary. We host a variety of events. And one of our biggest events of the year, my favorite event, is our CRES Senior Thesis Showcase, in which seniors present their research that they've been working on all year long in their thesis for each other. So it's a celebration of all the work that seniors are doing in a variety of different departments and disciplines, but all focused on the study of race and ethnicity. One more thing that I might say before I turn it over to Emilio and Kenna, who are much more interesting than I am, is that we also have a CRES minor. So for students who don't necessarily want to major in CRES, we do offer a CRES minor, which consists of coursework of about 6 courses or so. And again, encouraging students to take classes in the social sciences and history, as well as in arts and literature, and also taking that CRES Junior Seminar. So we we get 2 to 4 CRES majors every year, but we're starting to get a lot more minors. And we are working to kind of create community around CRES on campus through these different events. So I'll let Emilio and Kenna share more about their experiences of the major, and then I'm happy to answer questions that folks have.
Yeah, I can just go ahead if if I can just say a little bit about, I guess, things that I enjoy about the major. Something I really do love is the interdisciplinary nature of it, because it is a program and because does stretch across so many different departments. You get an interdisciplinary education, I would say, no matter what you do at Reed, but with CRES, it's really highlighted. Like, I've been able to take 3 different music classes and 3 different sociology classes, and of course all my history classes. But I really do feel like the emphasis that CRES has on exploring race and ethnicity across all of these different departments and fields is really beneficial. It's given me like a very well-rounded education in this subject.
Thank you for sharing, Kenna.
Yeah,
Emilio?
I mean, I feel like that's kind of the main thing that drew me to CRES as well. Beyond that, I think that the way that that's like structured in as a requirement um, is like it's not just an emphasis on CRES kind of in or in sorry, emphasis on interdisciplinarity in the abstract, but it's something that you have to do. You have to create these pairings. So it encourages you not just to think interdisciplinarily, but like to develop specific links there, which has been really useful for me in kind of finding my own niche and coming to figure out what I wanted to do for thesis and stuff. I don't know. I think that um, it's hard to give necessarily an overview of all 4 years of my experience with CRES, but um, I think that, as Radhika said, the kind of community that we're creating is really taking off. I think in the past 2 years, it's really changed a lot. Granted, I switched into the major about 2.5 years ago, so but I don't know. Yeah, I'd be happy to answer a more specific question.
No, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate everyone for sharing. Trust me, I have questions, and I'm sure the audience will have questions. But we'll kind of ramp up and bring people throughout the journey. So I'm not sure if Professor Radhika wants to say more, or if you have any specific insights that you want to add before I just kind of start giving out questions.
One thing that I will say that makes CRES at Reed different than ethnic studies programs that you might see at other colleges is that while we are definitely in conversation with ethnic studies, most of those programs are very US focused. And at Reed, our CRES program really kind of stretches around the world. So I'm a historian of the British Empire, and so my CRES classes are all about the ways that race and ethnicity took imperial form through the British Empire and its different colonies. And I think that the interdisciplinary approach that I bring to my history classes really kind of focuses on making that history connected to the present. And so thinking about like how the structures that were formed in the past continue to shape international society and post-colonial societies today. And other faculty in CRES, they may focus on the US, like my colleague Margot Minardi teaches classes like Race and the Law in the United States, or my colleague Mark Burford in the History Department teaches a class called Music of the African American Freedom Struggle. But many more of our faculty teach classes that are about race and gender in the modern Middle East or race and transnational China. Those are two classes that are being taught this semester. So we really do take a global focus in the way that we approach the study of race and ethnicity at Reed.
It's a great point. So thank you for that. I was going to go into that point. So could you kind of talk about maybe is there a certain student profile that may fit the CRES program, or is it just open to all Reed students?
Yeah, CRES is definitely for everyone. That's the way that I see it. And that means whether or not you're kind of coming through and taking a few classes to satisfy a distribution requirement, or you are deciding to minor in it, or you're deciding to major in it. So, again, like Kenna and Emilio both said, a CRES education is going to mean that you take some classes in sociology and learn some sociological theory, maybe. It means that you're also going to take classes in literature. You're going to read novels. Another one of my colleagues in the English department teaches the literature of the Indian Ocean, teaches a class on South Asian women writers. So, I think Emilio and Kenna have both taken music classes. I keep talking about CRES music, but we have CRES music majors. Really, you could think about it as being interested in all of these different ways of thinking about how race and ethnicity structure our world. And also because of the complexity of these phenomenon, having these multiple approaches to it is how we kind of understand how they work too, I think.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So we'll come back to the students for a little bit. Uh, Kenna or Emilio, can you kind of talk about your journey into this specific program and kind of what motivated you to be interested in the program and kind of you can lead up all the way up to your thesis. But if you want to talk about that, you can give us insight on that as well, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I took an ethnic studies class in my high school. I was actually part of the group of students that sort of advocated for an ethnic studies and a social justice class to be offered in my senior year. So I knew it was something that I was interested in, but I didn't actually know that Reed had a department that was maybe similar to that when I first came here. So I was declared as a history major and I was taking some history classes. And my first history class just so happened actually to be cross-listed as CRES. It was race and ethnicity in the US. And I enjoyed it so much. I learned so much. It was with a visiting professor. He was amazing. And it just really spoke to me, and I would discover it spoke to me a bit more than other history classes that I had taken here that were not CRES focused. And Radhika was actually my advisor at the time, and I was expressing this to her, and she told me, "Well, CRES is actually a major. You can switch and do that." And the more I explored it, the more I sort of discovered that interdisciplinary approach, and I really fell in love with that. And I also think, I was sort of thinking about future careers and what I might want to do. And I think that studying, so many different aspects of academia, of culture, of everything through this CRES lens has given me a really unique perspective on history, sociology, music that I think is going to be beneficial taking forward into a future career, like no matter what I decide to do, even not in a career, taking forward into my life as a citizen of the world, So it's been very beneficial. And I guess to speak to my thesis a little bit, um, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. I haven't really been like planning it for super long time, but uh, I was just sort of thinking on some of the CRES classes that I had taken, and something that stood out to me in particular was the CRES JSEM. We had a week where we were learning about Hawaii and some dynamics there with we had a guest speaker come, Jamaica Osorio, who spoke, and she's a poet and an activist and a scholar from Hawaii, and we were learning about her works and the Mauna Kea protests, and I had heard about some Hawaiian issues in a couple of different classes I'd taken, so it just really piqued my interest, and now I'm writing about race and ethnicity in Hawaii during the Hawaiian Renaissance in the 1970s and how race and ethnicity shaped who was participating in these social movements of the time and what those sort of interpersonal dynamics were like and how they were shaped.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like I have more questions, but we'll come back to you. We'll give Emilio an opportunity to express his thoughts as well.
Yeah, sounds good. I hopefully I don't cut out. I lost connection for a sec, but I think I'm good now.
You'll be
Um,
fine.
I came to read planning to do linguistics, and I was like really into language, and I kind of soon discovered, I mean, all the love to linguistics, but they have a very, it's a more scientific approach thinking about language, and I discovered that what really I think what I was really interested in is people's communication, how people relate to one another and kind of exist in society. And that drove me a little bit towards anthropology, but um, I had already started down this path too of doing a Spanish minor and a lot of literature. And so I found this space of anthro and I had taken intro anthro and I was like, you know what? I can do this. I mean, I talked to, I think it was Anand Vaidya, who is one of our lovely anthropology professors. He was on sabbatical this year, but he'll be back. And he similarly, I think, steered me in the right direction. And I've been pretty happy with it since. I started most of the CRES classes that I took at first were in music. I'm taking that music in the Black Freedom Struggle class right now with Mark, which is great. But I really I got really into classes with another music professor, Morgan Luker, who teaches on Latin America. And I kind of discovered, unsurprisingly from my own family background, that I was really interested in focusing in on music and on Latin America. And that led me to my thesis, which is not something I had been planning for super long either, but it came out of a project that I did for a CRES music class, which was Latin American popular music. Um, Although the caveat is, I will say, I got that class accredited as CRES, so that's maybe something that's a more complicated story. But um, yeah, it just happened to be this project that I did out of a song I had found on Spotify from this little known genre from Uruguay. Um, and I went down a rabbit hole and it led me to get to go and do field work over the summer. And it was an incredible experience. And throwing myself in the deep end with this project has been really valuable. So I don't know if that answers the whole journey, but we got here.
You, no, you did a great job. I appreciate that. So going back to Professor Radhika, talk to me about, so we see students that you meet them and then they come into this program. Like, what are their motivations? What type of motivations do you hear when you have conversations with students about the program and maybe where they want to study, what they want to study, and how they want to contribute to the program?
I would say that what um, brings together CRES students, the students who want to major in CRES, is that they are trying to make sense of their world and to understand how it has come to be the way that it is, and what are the kind of pressures and dynamics that shape social movements, that shape politics. And for those students, it really comes back to these questions of race and ethnicity, how people define themselves and their communities, the structures of power that position people differently in hierarchies, both within nations and globally. And, I think that students see race and ethnicity in the world, and they want to be able to explain how it works. They want to know about people who have fought against these structures of oppression, and they want to feel part of, I think, something bigger in understanding how the world has been organized and how it could be different. That's what I see brings students to my classes and motivates a lot of the students who have majored in CRES.
Awesome. Well, to that end, can you talk a little bit about, we're going to go back a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about your work and how it helped you inform who you are and what led you to be in this position and teaching here at Reed, if you don't mind?
Sure. I was an undergraduate history major, and I really loved the experience of writing my senior essay, which was about the East India Company and 18th century Calcutta. And I was really interested in understanding this kind of transitional moment in the history of the British in India. And my research was really on images produced of Calcutta by these two British artists. And so, even as an undergraduate, I was a history major and I was looking at some archival documents, but I was really interested in visual material and literature and thinking about how I needed to look at all of these different sources, kinds of sources, to understand this time period. And so I went to graduate school to study imperial history, and I shifted from the 18th century to the 20th century, and from the kind of origins of empire to its end. And my research on Britain really focuses on migration after World War II to Britain, and the way that people from the Caribbean, from South Asia, from Africa, who migrated to Britain, they had rights. They had the right to enter the country. They had the rights to work, to welfare, and yet they faced exclusion. So I look at the forms of social organization that emerged through the welfare state and through kind of making demands on the welfare state, um, that on the one hand helped these migrants and their descendants argue for their place in Britain, argue for their rights, but on the other hand, kind of reproduce colonial categories of difference. It said people from the Caribbean, or these kind of forms of social organization, said people from the Caribbean need these kinds of services, people from South Asia need these kinds of services. And what I saw in that process, that historical process in the 50s and 60s and 70s in Britain, felt really relevant to my own life and the kinds of multiculturalism that position people kind of differently based on their cultural background. So at Reed, I've really had the freedom to design my courses to help students understand and help myself learn more about how kind of these imperial structures of difference shaped categories of race and indigeneity. I often touch on indigeneity in my classes as well. Shaped not only the British Empire, but also continue to shape our world.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know if Kenna or Emilio can I know you guys are working on your own research topics and papers and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if you talk to your fellow classmates often about the work that they're discussing, but if you guys don't mind sharing kind of what other topics for research that you hear other students working on, or faculty members that are working on research, if you don't mind sharing any of those topics.
I I don't know any other well, CRES, I guess students working on these bigger projects, especially because in our year at least, Amelia and I are the only two CRES seniors. And as far as professors go, I can't say I'm as familiar as maybe I ought to be on sort of the research that people are doing outside of the classes that they teach, but I have taken some lovely, like very informative classes. Another music class with Mark on the Africa in the Black musical imagination was very interesting. I took one with a sociology professor about the sociology of race, violence, and power. I don't know if that's exactly what you're getting at. I might be straying from the question a little bit.
No, you're fine. That's perfectly fine. I just kind of wanted to hear, I know it's a daunting task to work on your own research already, right? So just kind of curious on if you guys have come across any other topics that you may have found interesting that, other students that may be working on, or professors that you had classes with that they worked on.
I can just share a little bit. Like I said, at the end of the year, we have a CRES Senior Showcase, and it's not only CRES seniors, official majors that participate in that, because we have students across the campus who are studying race and ethnicity, even if they're not CRES majors. So a couple of students I know who are seniors this year, the topics that they're working about. There's a student in the history department who's writing about her family's history of the Great Migration from the South to South Bend, Indiana. So she's kind of reading Black newspapers from South Bend, from Chicago, actually a lot more too, to learn more about Black community making work and politics in mid 20th century South Bend. There's another student in the psychology department who is writing about like Black women's experience of gender presentation and sexuality, like so especially like how they confront stereotypes of Black women's sexuality. So that was a really fascinating research project in terms of thinking about how to ask questions for surveys and kind of thinking about yeah, just like how you want to show care in your research plan and project with questions like that. I have another student who's writing about Hindu nationalism and especially the ways in the 20th century, the Ghadar Party, which was founded here in Oregon as an a militant Indian nationalist group, the ways that they understood nationalism, the nationalist project in India in relationship to their experiences of discrimination and racism here in the United States. I can share one more project to help give you all a sense of the kinds of topics students are working on across the college. One of our CRES anthro majors is a spring fall major, which means they start their thesis in the spring semester and they'll finish up in the fall. And that student is working on um, Chinatowns, and she is studying Portland's Chinatown through kind of the history and the experiences of people visiting one restaurant in it. So as you can see, there's a huge variety of topics that kind of that students put together. And the most important thing about thesis, really, whatever your major is at Reed, is that it's your own project, that it's your opportunity to write about what you want to write about that. And as faculty, we just try to support that to the extent that we can.
Oh, okay, thank you. I appreciate that answer. Could you talk a little bit more about how when students do conduct research, the kind of support that you just alluded to, what does that look like? Is it in terms of funding, or is it in terms of just guidance, in terms of where they can find research materials and things of that nature?
Yeah, so I'll say a little bit before I turn it over to Emilio and Kenna. So as faculty, we meet with our senior students once a week. Sometimes that's in group meetings, depending on the faculty member, to get their multiple advisees together to be a kind of peer group to support them. But those weekly meetings are really about kind of setting an agenda for the following week to make sure they're on track to kind of tackle this really long, year-long research project, that they can divide it up into clear kind of sections, and that they know what they're working on every week. So I often don't tell my thesis advisees what to do. I'm just there as the person who's like, okay, what's on the agenda for this week? How does it fit into the larger project? And then the following week, I check up with them. But I really see it as the students are the ones who are proposing the project. They are the ones who are generating the reading to help them understand the kind of context of their project and helping design it. I'm there to support and advise, but it's not my research. And Kenna and Emilio, I know you've both been able to travel to do research for your project, so maybe you want to share a little bit more about how that was possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the advising process has been amazing. And what Radhika is saying is absolutely right. The support is just really like really helpful to stay on track, to stay, t take this big project like one bite at a time. So, my advisor, at the beginning of last semester talked to me about a fund through READ, the undergraduate research fund that you can apply for if if your research calls for, extra funding. And students can use this in all different types of ways. It can be used to travel, it can be used to order books, it can be used. I know one student who's using it actually to pay somebody to look at archives for him in Lebanon because he can't go there himself. So it's very flexible. And she brought this to my attention. And I was looking at some archives at the University of Hawaii in Manoa, and there were a lot of things online that I could find, but there were some that I thought would be particularly helpful to my thesis that were not digitized yet. And I applied for this fund, and very luckily I got it. And over winter break, I got to spend a week in Hawaii doing archival research at the university, and it was such an amazing experience. I was so grateful for it, especially because sometimes with history theses, you can sort of get stuck in the books. And I have some friends who are like, I've only been in the library. Like, that's all I've been doing for the last however many months. But getting to actually go to this place, even outside of the archive, and like see the places that I've been researching was just invaluable. Like now if I'm reading about a place, I'm like, oh yeah, actually drove right past there. Like I know where they're talking about. Or even my Uber driver gave me some amazing information and people to connect with who've been super helpful. So it was a really amazing process. And yeah, I have my advisor to thank for that.
Yeah, I don't know if this would be a good place to maybe foreground a little bit the research that we did. I don't know if that's something that you like, maybe some details about it. If that's the case, maybe I'll pass it back to Kenna. That way you can just and then I can get my yap in for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good idea. I looked at three different manuscripts. One was a personal manuscript from an activist named George Helm, who was part of the Kaho'olawe protests and occupation in Hawaii. Um, and it was very insightful. Four folders were his personal diaries, and others were sort of pamphlets, flyers. I looked at one that was specific to the university and their Committee on Hawaiian Language, Art, and Culture Preservation. And the last one I looked at was from an organization called Save Our Surf. It was an environmentalist organization that was very active during the Hawaiian Renaissance and saved hundreds of public beaches and parks and wild spaces, um, as well as was very involved with other movements of the time. Because something that I've been finding in my research is that that often goes hand in hand, is that, the wild spaces, the, you know, public lands that are being taken are often being taken from the most underprivileged areas. So that was also amazing to look at. So many beautiful hand-drawn pamphlets and even the stuff that wasn't relevant to my thesis was just gorgeous. And I ended up spending a little bit more time in there than I was planning to because it was hard to pull myself away from like just all this information that the archives, especially, you can't find it anywhere else. So it was an amazing experience.
Thank you.
Yeah. In terms of my experience, I also got money from the URC, the Undergraduate Research Commission, question mark, committee? I don't know. Um, and it started with we have for entrance into your thesis for your final year, you have to take a qualifying exam in your junior year, and as part of that, they have you do like a mock proposal. And so I used that opportunity to kind of sketch up what it would look like if I were to do research. And my advisor at the time was very supportive in a very hands-on way of kind of tailoring it to what we can make happen in terms of funding and research logistics. And in the end, I got also very lucky. I was able to go to Montevideo, which is the capital of Uruguay, and I was there for a little bit over a month doing research. And the way that mine worked, I think, is probably a little bit less structured because the music genre that I was studying, it's called candombe. It's both a recorded genre, but then it's also kind of like a street practice. Like if anybody's sort of second line in New Orleans, kind of related to carnival, and but people go out every weekend and march on the streets. So it was a lot of I basically got paid to go party. No. But I was out there kind of doing field recordings and doing interviews with people on the street. And beyond that, I got to visit a couple different archives and museums. And I did get to use some of the funding as well to take a couple drumming lessons, which was super interesting, although I did not learn very much. Um, and yeah, I'd say in terms of uh, how that's played into my thesis, I think working from anthropology, it's a little bit different. I had an expectation that my thesis was going to be ethnographic, which sort of means that I'm writing about, um, I'm kind of giving a narrative about this research that I did more so in the first person. And um, I think from that perspective, a month wasn't even close to enough, but I had, so maybe I'll get to continue some of this work, but it was, yeah, also, I mean, we both, I think, went to some beautiful, places. So I think we got lucky in that sense, but
Or you chose your topics well. So.
yeah, exactly. Although I lost my summer because I was there and it's on the other side of, the equator. So it was pretty cold and rainy there. I was like, how did I end up in another Portland? So.
No, thank you both for sharing, and I hope you get the opportunity to, once you graduate from Reed, and hope you continue on to do your research. I would love to read. I like to read a lot of research, so good, best of luck on your journey in that. So the undergraduate research committee helps you kind of help fund, get you started in terms of getting you the funds so you can go do your research. That's awesome. That's good to know. We're coming up on the end here, so feel free to put any more questions in the chat. If not, then I would just ask for like maybe closing statements from the three of you, if you don't mind. Just kind of maybe some words of encouragement, or is the push forward for potential future readings here? Oh, we have one, and it says, "How large is the whole department, Professor?"
As I said, we aren't a department, we're a program. So we have faculty across departments on campus. If you go to our website, there's a list of faculty in the different departments that we say, but I would say that there's, about 15 faculty who regularly teach CRES classes, who are involved in our programming, who serve on our committee, who help kind of keep the program going. And then I'd say that we have 2 to 4 majors every year. And so far, we've had CRES anthropology, CRES sociology, CRES history, CRES music, and CRES English majors. And those CRES music and English majors are coming up because the CRES English especially is a new one. And then now we're starting to see a lot more minors. I think in terms of seniors this year, because the minors are a relatively new program on campus, but I think we're going to have, again, similarly 2 to 4 CRES minors a year.
So thank you. Another question was asked, can you talk a bit more about being involved in the program without necessarily having it as a major or minor? And I think that's kind of to the question of like well, I'll allow you to speak to it.
Yeah, so everyone is welcome in CRES, whether you're a major or a minor or just curious. So I would say that there are ways of being involved in our programming, like the book launch event we're having tonight is open to anyone on campus who'd like to come. Similarly, the CRES Senior Thesis Showcase, often friends of the students who are presenting come in. It's often like a big festive event. So the programming that we do is open to everyone. And then classes, I have students, right now I'm teaching a class called Race and the Politics of Decolonization. There's 22 students in one section of the class. I think 2 of them are CRES majors. So there are students across the campus who are biology majors and econ majors who are taking our classes because they're interested in the material, because it also counts for different kinds of distribution requirements, because they want to be there. So, yeah, CRES is for everyone.
Thank you. We have another question. I heard in the sciences research funding has been getting cut. Has there also been funding cuts in CRES?
Well, you'd have to have a lot of funding in order for it to be cut. So we aren't facing quite the same situation as the sciences, where they really depend on those huge federal grants. We do not have those kinds of grants in CRES, so this isn't a problem. We do our research and we do our programming how we can kind of put it together.
All right, we have time for about 1 or 2 more questions, and then I'll allow our esteemed panelists to share their final thoughts and then leave. Any other questions before they share their thoughts?
I'll say to the funding point as well that the URC funding is quite accessible, and obviously that's just for senior. Well, I think you can use it maybe towards other things. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it's not as competitive maybe as we've made it out to seem. You have to, there's a high standard for the kind of work that you have to do, but in terms of competition, I think that at Reed there's enough money to go around for students, and I hope that addresses some of the concerns there, right? I mean, it's certainly a tough moment to be interested in a program with such a name like CRES, but it's worth it, and there, I don't think there's any concern of not having access to those resources. Certainly not in the next couple of years.
Okay, thank you. Last question here, and oh, Kenny, you answered that. Thank you. Candace, Kenny, you can come off mute and share.
Yeah, I just didn't want to interrupt, but yes, there is another option for that funding for non-senior theses. That's through like the same office.
Awesome. Thank you. Now, before we get out of here, did you any last statements you just want to share about just giving any, push forward or excitement for potential future readings?
I would just say it's a great time to be a part of CRES. We're so excited because the program is growing, not only because the program's only about 8 years old. So we are a kind of newish program and a growing program. But next year, I'm really excited because we're going to be hiring 2 new faculty members in CRES, one in Indigenous Latin American history and the other in U.S. ethnic studies. And so we always involve students in the hiring of those faculty members. And so I don't know, I'm excited. I'm excited. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world and at the federal level, but I'm really excited about what's happening with CRES at Reed.
Thank you. Thank you all. Kenneth, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I guess just about sort of being a readie, I remember being in these sort of Zoom talks as you guys were, and I remember all of this information feeling very daunting and very overwhelming. So I just want to let you know that as you go through this process, you're going to be ready for every, once you have to do your thesis, once you have to do your JSEM, you're going to be ready. Read gets you ready for those big steps. So don't worry too much about it. You're going to have a great time.
It's almost as if we get to give a little bit of a retrospective here, but you're going through it from the opposite direction for sure. Um, I don't know. Maybe I can't think of anything else, but I think that, like Radhika said, big things are happening with CRES, and I'm glad to have been able to sort of ride that for the past couple years. And yeah, no, I have nothing else to say. I can solidly say that this academic experience has been exactly what I hoped for. Um, and I guess to what Kenna said as well, right? Like having an awareness of CREST, right? You don't have to come in and throw yourself in the deep end. Reed has a good system for helping you figure these kind of things out. It's tough with certain majors. I think like psychology is probably our most sort of impacted, if not that it didn't, it actually is, but CREST is always open, and that's a plus.
Thank you, everyone, for uh, thank you to our esteemed panelists. First of all, I appreciate you all for taking time out of your busy day and schedule to be on here and to attend faculty hours. I really enjoyed the idea of faculty hours. So getting the opportunity to speak with not only faculty but to hear from the students' perspective has been amazing. I tell anyone else that is on the call here to be on the lookout for upcoming faculty hours. You can find them on our site as well. So. Again, thank you to everyone, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening. Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.